Welcome everyone to the TFT Earthworm Podcast. This is our first Earthworm podcast and is indeed TFT's first ever podcast. Some years ago I dabbled with the idea of a regular podcast, and so I interviewed some of the really interesting people I was lucky enough to be meeting at the time. I posted the discussions online and we did get some listeners, but in the end I ran out of steam. Now though, the time seems right to get serious about podcasts as we launch our new Earthworm program. Yes, that's right, we have a new program at TFT and it's called Earthworm. That's a bit odd, I can hear people thinking. Why Earthworm? And it's a great question. And for anyone who's seen TFT's coat of arms on our new website, which is tft-earth.org by the way, and I do encourage people to visit us and have a look because we're very proud of it, you'll see that earthworms do indeed feature quite prominently in all of our imagery. There are a couple of reasons for that, and these really do underpin why our new program is called Earthworm. The first and most simple reason is that earthworms really are terrific little animals. They're great at bringing life to difficult situations. They convert dead matter into living matter, full of nutrients, water, and nurturing microorganisms. Charles Darwin devoted years of his life to studying earthworms and concluded that they are one of the world's most important beings. Indeed, he called them our greatest farm worker. They're humble creatures and they do their work in the shadows, underground, out of sight, and with little fanfare. And we think there's some resonance there with the way TFT works. But there's a second, deeper reason why the earthworm is so important to us at TFT, and it's very much linked to the founding spark that kicked off the dream in my head to become a forester. But it happened a very long time ago now, when I was just 15 years old in 1979. I was listening to the ABC radio, as you do when you're living in rural Australia, and on came The Science Show, hosted by Robin Williams, a wonderful man and an Australian national living treasure. We don't have knights and dames in Australia anymore, and Robin has been recognised for his great contributions to the Australian society over so many years. And Robin introduced Richard St Barbe Baker, the man of the trees, Robin called him. He was responsible for planting millions of trees all around the world after a very long life. St Barbe had been visiting Western Australia at the invitation of Barry Oldfield, another remarkable, humble, living treasure, who had interviewed Richard St Barbe Baker and shared the recording with Robin. Robin had added some beautiful classical music to the start of the interview, and St Barbe's rich, ancient, wise and sonorous voice caressed the airwaves with poetry, science and reflections on his travels and his life's work, and I was instantly captured. Up until that point I'd hoped to become a vet. I love animals, but having listened to St Barbe, I was changed forever, and then and there I decided to become a forester. The part of the interview that had intrigued me most was when St Barbe described the process of stone mulching. Yes, stone mulching. I'm thinking, what's stone mulching? Here he is, speaking to Barry Oldfield from 1979.
Now, the worm is the best farm worker. Darwin told us all there was to be known about the life history of the worm. But what he didn't teach us was how to harness the worm. And this I've been trying to do for the past 40 years, to teach people how to use the worm on their farms and in their gardens, by helping them to increase the humus, aerate the soil. And on the fringe of the Sahara and in Israel, where I started planting trees over 50 years ago, we put a stone or a couple of stones for every tree on the road from Jerusalem to Jericho, in our plantations in the Judean hills, and if a goat knocked a stone off, the tree would die. The stone is there to water the tree. This is what we call stone mulching or top mulching. The stone draws down the heat, and that draws up the heat from below and draws up the moisture and will protect the worm. The worm will come up and down, or worms, and enjoy a cool night under the stone in the moisture that's accumulated under the stone. And in the morning the worm goes down again. If you pick up that stone, you'll see 2 or 3 worms just underneath, all in the cool and damp. But what is not generally understood is that you can't have superphosphate and worms. The worms don't like the superphosphate or any of the chemicals or weed killers and things that you put on the crops nowadays, selective weed killers. You have to make up your mind whether you're going to harness the worm or you're going to work for the chemical merchant.
After that, I'm thinking, where did those bloody earthworms come from? I mean, it's so dry. It's the desert, for goodness sake. But here were these worms, clearly buried very, very deep underground, but waiting, just ready for their chance to come to the surface when conditions were right to do their thing. They were clearly so fundamentally important to bring life-bearing conditions to those newly planted, fragile, vulnerable trees. Isn't that amazing? But it wasn't just the earthworms that intrigued me, it was also the rock. Who would ever have thought of the idea of placing a rock or two around those fragile little seedlings? What innovation, what creativity. I couldn't believe it. Even in the harshest conditions, when all is desert, people can think of great ideas and move forward. And between the rock and the earthworms, we had a great team working to bring life back to that desert, to the wasteland the people there had created by felling the trees in the first place. But hold on a minute. What about the goats? And more particularly, what about the goat herder? A whole community had made an effort to join St Barb in planting those seedlings, hopeful of creating a better restored environment. But if only one man acted in disregard of their efforts and let his goats into the new planting area, the trees could and likely would die. All would be wasted. Wow, I thought. How tenuous life is and how utterly dependent it is on the coming together of so many factors. If the goat herder cared, the trees could survive and flourish, sending down roots to tap into the water sources deep below. But if the goat herder didn't care, or perhaps he just didn't understand, it was just a rock to him after all, his goats would do their worst and the trees would die. So tenuous. And I remember the imagery that St Barb created in my young and fragile mind of those fragile seedlings. Rocks and earthworms, goats and people, all interacting, nature and people together, to see if they could make things better. And I've never stopped thinking about it ever since. And that's why the earthworm and the rock are two so very important symbols to me and to TFT. Life-giving, humble, unheralded, but so important in so many situations. And that's why we're launching our new earthworm program. Since our inception in 1999, we've had so many fascinating experiences working with people and nature to see if we can bring life back to wasteland situations, where forests have been destroyed, where people's lives have been just terribly disadvantaged and ruined through bad practice. We've learned so much through these experiences, and our Earthworm program is designed to share those experiences and the lessons more broadly, indeed with as many people as possible. Our hope is to accelerate change, to help people to bring life-giving support to more and more situations where there is a small hope that people want to grow, just like those small seedlings that St Barb and the communities planted all those years ago on the road to Jericho. Situations where we have people, some acting like life-giving earthworms and protective rocks. Situations with good goat herders working with people to protect the hope to grow. But also situations where the conditions aren't yet right, where there are goat herders, wittingly or perhaps unwittingly, not playing their part, disrupting things, stopping the hope from flourishing, wasting efforts and creating wastelands. These are the situations we all work in, but after 16 years working at TFT, we've seen many, many cases where wastelands have been created, but where seeds of new ideas and new initiatives, new ways of working have been planted and then protected and given the right conditions to flourish. Our Earthworm program is designed to share these stories and these experiences of how change happens so that we might unpick the lessons from them and apply them elsewhere. And we need to, and quickly. The world is really heading in the wrong direction. We're on a trajectory to more than 6 degrees warming, and our friends, the scientists at NASA, have made it clear that large mammals can't survive at those temperatures. And I look at my family and my friends, and I say to them, you've all got that large mammal look about you. So we're in trouble, and it's imperative on us to act, and quickly. These problems, the 6 degrees warming, it's not going to happen tomorrow. It might be hundreds of years away. But the things we do today affect that future. So we must act, and we must act now. Because we're already seeing the terrible effects from our terrible appetite for devouring natural resources. We're seeing species becoming extinct all over the world. Species extinctions are soaring. Oceans are acidifying, and while being choked with plastic waste, we're running out of water, and our forests are disappearing. Ice sheets are melting irreversibly, and people are being exploited and having their livelihoods destroyed. It isn't pretty. We're really in strife. And really, there's no certainty that we can turn any of this around. For sure, more bad disasters await us. But my hope is that by sharing the lessons through our Earthworm program of how change has happened and how it can happen, even in situations where people thought it absolutely impossible, of how people can work together to fix the problems they've created, then they might just get inspired, as I was inspired by St Barb all those years ago, to work to make things better. We really hope that by sharing, we can accelerate change. So our aim is to plant more seedlings of hope and action to help more people to be rocks and earthworms, to be good, caring goat herders. And it's not rocket science, and we can do it despite all the despairing situations we see growing all around us and we hear about every day in the news. So yeah, that's why Earthworm. Our Earthworm program is all about sharing, capacity building, awareness raising, and inspiration. It's a call to action. It's a cooee, as we say in Australia. Ultimately, our aim is to set people's spirits free to be earthworms and rocks in their own places, in their own contexts. To make this happen, we'll have more Earthworm podcasts where we'll share these experiences, and we'll speak with lots of interesting people who can share their experiences of how they brought change to their situations. And we're launching our Earthworm program website, which is earthworm.net. We're planning events, small, some large gatherings, but mostly small, intimate gatherings where we're going to bring people together to discuss and share these lessons from change processes that we've been involved in and that they've been involved in. So together we can enrich each other's sharing experiences. And we'll announce these events on earthworm.net, and I encourage anyone interested in accelerating change to get involved. We'd love to have you, we'd love to see you, and we'd love to hear your experiences and your lessons and all of the knowledge that you can share with us. Please do get involved. The first event will be in Geneva in May, and details of where and when are going to be announced on our earthworm.net website. And we're really hoping that interest exists elsewhere. Not everyone can come to Geneva, we understand that, but we hope that we can hold events in many different places around the world where we can get this accelerated change happening. So we look forward to talking more and more about our fellow earthworms and the great things that they're doing in future podcasts, in events, and on our website. Until then, I'm Scott Poynton from the Forest Trust. Good on you, thanks for listening, and I can't wait to catch up with you all in the future.